This is BKL Nightly. I'm Thad Brown along with Caleb Carr and Rachel Leiber. Got something fun planned for you today. A little AFC contender check-in. We're going to take a look at around the AFC, the teams that are really of concern to the Bills, how they are doing in free agency and the offseason so far. So here's what the rules are going to be. We have elected to determine that there are, or I have, by the way, not we, I have. There are 10 teams I've determined as the contenders, including the Bills. The 6 teams who we will not concern ourselves with: Jets, Dolphins, Titans, Browns, Raiders, and Colts. We'll debate that in a second. What we're going to do with the other 10 teams is determine what we think is the best move has been made in the offseason among those 10 teams in total, the worst move, best bargain, biggest overpay. You get the idea. Before we begin, I will throw it to the floor because I promised you guys in the text chain I would do this. Any problem with either the 6 teams that we are going to ignore for this exercise or the 10 teams we will include? Anybody?
I don't think I had a problem with any of them other than the Colts, maybe. I get the, Daniel Jones is probably going to be out for
a good chunk,
so that kind of plays a role. Honestly, I think selfishly the only reason I wanted them in there was because I wanted to talk about Alec Pierce. But other than that, I don't have a problem with any of them.
Me either.
The only other thing I talked about is keeping Pittsburgh in the contender status. Is that too much? I thought it was fair, but I think there's a debate there.
I think you can make a debate, but I think if Aaron Rodgers stays with them, they've made a few good moves that they could very easily still be right there.
Yeah, I think it's fair to keep him in.
Okay, so we will begin now. So again, among the other 10 teams, the 10 contenders, if we determine them, we'll go around the room. Give me your best move. And again, best doesn't have to be like you break it down granularly to every dollar that was allotted to this player, but maybe the move that stuck out to you, Rachel, as the one you liked the most among the other 10 teams.
Now, I know this might be like an obvious, I don't know if it's an obvious best move. I just like the move, but I feel like maybe some people don't like the move. And that's just Trey Hendrickson to the Ravens. I mean, it's obviously a very pricey move, but I think the Ravens are addressing a need that they very much need. And with the Max Crosby situation, everything falling through, I think this was maybe the better alternative. I mean, I don't know if it's the best move out there. Like I said, it is a pricey move, but I think any team getting Hendrickson that's going to be a good move for them. So that's why I went with this one.
No, I agree with that. I think him to the Ravens. I mean, we've talked about how edge rushers, you look at the past Super Bowl championships and star edge rushers aren't often on those teams, but I do think that the Ravens have a really, really good defense, and he just kind of adds to that. My pick, though, I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker to the Kansas City Chiefs. My main reason for that, I don't think Kenneth Walker is the best player that got, I think Trey Hendrickson's up there, Jalen Waddle. There's a lot of other better players than him, but I think he fits this offense. And again, like you talked about needs, he fits a need in that offense, especially for a team that is going to be trying to compete without Patrick Mahomes for the first part of the season in hopes that Mahomes comes back and they still are in playoff contention. You need a run game to be able to do that. We saw how important a run game was for the Bills this past season, and I think Kenneth Walker gives the Chiefs a valuable player to help boost that run game.
Before I go to my Trey Hendrickson take on Kenneth Walker, he was on the shorter list of moves that I liked for sure. So I certainly get the idea of Kansas City needing a back that takes some of the freight off the passing offense and keeps the offense moving. Best move for me, little deeper cut. I went Reed Blankenship, the safety for Houston. Here's the thing. So the Texans didn't hardly lose anybody off their defense, which was already ridiculous. Reed Blankenship is a younger, ascending safety. This is a second contract player. 9 interceptions in his first 4 years with Philly. Their defense was clearly okay also. So to take a good piece from that Philly defense, put it on that already really good Houston defense, and they didn't have to lose anything off the defense, to me, that is a stick-out move for sure in terms of what the best move is. So let's get to my Trey Hendrickson take, which also coincidentally, worst move, yes.
Wow.
Yes. Now look, this is not, worst move is strong because, worst among all things. But going back to what Caleb said about edge rushers in terms of being the guy, as the only guy as a pass rush, have not really led to championships. The other part of this for me is, too, they paid a ridiculous amount of money for a guy who's 31, who is closer to the back end. Yep. We here in Buffalo have seen how that goes, and it doesn't always go well. Exactly. And the other part of it, too, is when you match it with the fact that the Ravens are like the Bills, going to a new coach, a new defensive system. This is not a team to me that is ready for, we need one more big move and we're over the top. It might work out that way. Like Rachel is not wrong, I don't think, because I certainly get the Trey Hendrickson idea, but I just don't think the timeline of where the Ravens are in terms of their build overall by bringing in a new coach and a new scheme makes sense with, okay, we're going to give a gazillion dollars to one edge rusher and he's going to solve everything, especially at 31 years old.
I mean, I agree with you, but I also agree with Rachel that like it could be. I mean, like he's such a good player. Like I mean, when we look at the Bills, I don't think the Bills bringing in Von Miller or Joey Bosa is nearly on the same level as the Ravens bringing in Trey Hendrickson.
In what way though? Like what level?
Like you talked about how we've seen the Bills bring in older edge rushers and we've seen how that worked out. I think Trey Hendrickson is
a better player,
much better than Von Miller and Joey Bosa. So I do think it could. I do think it could work out a lot better for them than it has for Buffalo these past few years.
Bosa, yes. Von Miller, I'd say no. I'd say you might argue
maybe at the time of the signing, but when you look at what Von Miller actually did for Buffalo, and I know obviously we can't look at what Hendrickson has done for the Ravens yet because he hasn't played yet, but you would assume, based off his time in Cincinnati, that he's going to be better for Baltimore than Von Miller was for Buffalo.
You can assume. And
you can assume, but again, I know you.
Von Miller was good for 11 weeks. Like if the Ravens get Von Miller production for a full season that the Bills got for 11 weeks, they will be super happy with the move.
I bet.
I have my doubts about whether or not that happens. Go ahead, Rachel. You're going to add to that?
No, I was just going to say, I think it's an interesting look on this situation of, you can't win a Super Bowl by bringing in like a star edge rusher, which I agree with you on like the surface level. Like that is true. That's not what's going to get you there. But I think when you're looking at the Ravens in this situation, the Ravens have the offense that can get them to the Super Bowl, at least when they're healthy and Lamar Jackson isn't maybe playing like he did all of last year. But I mean, I don't know. I think this is I kind of disagree with you. This is a worse move. I still feel like this is a better move for them.
The Ravens also have a number of stars on the defensive side. Like it's not like adding Hendrickson is adding the star. Like again, like comparing to the Bills. Comparing to the Bills. When you bring in Joey Bosa and Von Miller, you brought them in as the star of the defense.
Again, Joey Bosa, yes. Von Miller played with a couple decent safeties, to be fair.
Yeah, he did. But I do think that the Ravens have more stars, if you want to call them, on the defense right now.
I get it. I certainly hear your argument, but I will stand on this. I don't, the more I thought about this move, the less I like it for the Ravens, especially again, with a new coach, new scheme. You're building a lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
This is not push you over the top time for Baltimore. I think they're building a lot more. All right, Rachel, give me your worst move of free agency from the AFC contenders.
Caleb and I were talking about this, and I was like, I don't want to steal one of yours, but now I'm
Go ahead
to because after my research, I agree with you. Jonathan Allen to Cincinnati, just a guy, 2 years, $26 million deal, but he's 31 years old. We keep talking about age. Production's declined the last 2 years, and that's why he was released from the last two teams he was with. So when looking at Cincinnati and looking at just bringing him in, yes, I think he can help Cincy, but just overall, I guess, value of him, I don't know if I'd put him as what they're paying for him.
Certainly for what they need too. I mean, they need something bigger than Jonathan Allen. They've done, more. They have Boye Mafe's into, so that helps. But I certainly hear what you're saying there.
I had a hard time with this worst move category because to me, in a few minutes we'll be doing biggest overpay.
They're similar.
They're so similar. So I was trying to find a player that like maybe didn't get overpaid that I just don't really like very much. And the best thing I could come up with was offensive lineman Cole Strange signing a 2-year, $13 million deal with the Chargers. I don't think that Cole Strange is very good. I do think that that's kind of an overpay. He's kind of bounced around. He was drafted really high by New England, which turned a lot of heads. He didn't really turn out there. Now going to the Chargers. The Chargers need a lot of help at the offensive line. And this just kind of felt like a Band-Aid on a broken arm or whatever the saying is. But
if that's not the saying, it should be the saying.
It should be the saying.
Right.
It's the new saying. It felt like they were like, oh yeah, this will help, and it's really like you're not really doing anything with that. I think offensive line was the biggest area the Chargers needed to swing big at. And Cole Strange at 2 years, $13 million is not a big swing in any sense.
And I like the Chargers adding Taylor Biotish at center, and I want to be excited about this team. While you have a problem on the O-line, especially in the interior, and you've added two guys. But I agree with you. I don't know how much Cole Strange really addresses the problem at guard. All right, next category is the best bargain of your AFC contenders so far in free agency. Caleb, you can go first this time.
Yes. I have a couple, but I have one that I really like. So
It's
I was
okay
hoping
to
you'd let me
repeat,
go
by the
first.
way.
I know, but
We've already repeated with Trey
I'd
Hendrickson,
rather
so-
have you guys repeat from me than me
Okay.
repeat from you guys. I'm going Michael Pittman to the Pittsburgh.
It's a good call.
Pittsburgh
Yeah.
Steelers. I mean, that was a steal for Pittsburgh. I believe they traded away a
6 for a 7th swap,
round,
yeah.
and they've got Pittman and a 7th. Pittman's only like 28 years old, and then he ended up signing a 2-year, $35 million contract with Pittsburgh, which honestly, the contract is pretty good value too. I know that he's kind of been, I don't want to say mediocre, because I think he's been better than mediocre this past few years, but he's also been on a not great Colts team that's really been struggling to find their quarterback. And then they finally find their quarterback last year, and then he goes down, and now he's like working with Phillip Rivers and like rookies out of whatever. So I think Pittman paired with hopefully DK Metcalf and possibly having Aaron Rodgers throwing it to him, I think that's a really, really good move for Pittsburgh.
I will save my Pittman thoughts because I'm going to talk about that move a little later on in the show. Rach, who you got for best bargain if you don't want to add on to Pittman here?
I do like the Pittman take, but I also do have some thoughts on him later in the show too. I like what Houston's doing with their O-line. So I kind of coupled together Wyatt Teller from the Browns. He's a 3-time Home Roller. It's 2 years, $60 million. His market value is, I think, $10 million a year. And then Braden Smith, tackle from Indianapolis, just partnering them together. I think that's a 2-year, $25 million deal. I think that's kind of a steal of, we know Houston's just so much of this defensive team and they need a little bit of help on their O-line. And I think just coupling those two, bringing them in has been a pretty good value for them.
Houston, one of the other categories we have coming up is what we think the best overall job is so far. They were like my honorable mention for exactly that reason. Look, Smith and Teller have decreased in their production and their game the last couple of years. But if you can find the 3-year-old version of them in Houston, that Texans team might be nasty. We just talked about how they augmented the defense that was already good. If you fix the O-line or go a long way towards doing it, I think that solves a lot of the problems we saw with C.J. Stroud last year, and it makes the Texans, like I said, really, really a big-time problem in the AFC. My best bargain, C.J. Gardner-Johnson for the Bills.
I didn't know the Bills were on the table for this. I thought it was everyone else.
No, we can do the Bills. You got to ask more about the rules next time for the questions here. Yeah, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Look, we know why he's a bargain, because he's also a ticking time bomb that could go off at any time, as the Texans found out last year. But 1 year, essentially a $3.5 million contract for a guy who can start, for a guy who can force turnovers, for a guy who can be a dictator. To me, that's a pretty good swing from the Bills' point of view. Again, it might not amount to anything, and I don't think he's an elite player, but you're doing this for backup money. You're doing this for, maybe high-level reserve money. So to me, C.J. Gardner-Johnson is certainly one of, if not the bargain so far in free agency. Sorry about that, Rachel. I should have been. I thought about saying that.
I don't know if
in the
I would have
text
really
chain.
changed any of my answers.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. Yeah, I think I would have said this.
I think when I was looking this up though for like biggest overpay and worst, I know Bradley Chubb was thrown around there a little bit for that category, but otherwise I think my answers would pretty much stay the same. So
yeah, the Bills were kind of middling. We'll get to at the end of this, we're gonna talk about where we think the Bills stand when we kind of come out of going through what all these AFC contenders did. Okay, if we have the best bargain, what was the biggest overpay? Rachel, you can go first this time.
I have Romeo Doubs to the Patriots. I mean, 4 years, $68 million is a lot of money. I think his market value is set at $12 million a year. So that's quite a bit over what they're paying for him. I mean, this is just a lot of money for a guy that's only broken 700 receiving yards once in the last 4 years of his career. I think he'll succeed with the Patriots. I think he'll be fine with Drake May, but I just think that's a lot of money to pay for a guy who he's been good, but I mean, he hasn't had 1,000 yards. He hasn't been like this breakout receiver. So for me, that was the biggest overpay.
It feels like the entire receiver market, except for Michael Pittman, has been an overpay across the board. And I think Alec Pierce getting what he got kind of resets the market. Everybody else has to follow. So it feels like a lot of these receiver contracts, maybe not all of them, but a good chunk of them, and what the Bills and Broncos had to trade for their receivers, they all feel like overpays to a degree. I thought about Dobbs. I get it from the point of view of, I think the Patriots had to pay that, not only for what the market states, but where their receiving core is at. They needed a guy like that, but I don't think you're wrong.
I mean, when compared to Alec Pierce, the Romeo Doubs
doesn't look as bad.
It looks like a steal. But I also had Romeo Doubs down. I think this was kind of like okay, we think he can be worth this much rather than he is worth this much right now. Because I do think that he has the potential to be a good wide receiver. He's shown that. He's never really been given like the full wide receiver one completely opportunity in Green Bay. So I do understand it. My other one was Boye Mafe, outside linebacker. Was with Seattle last year, 2 sacks, 31 tackles. Not great, just signed a 3-year, $60 million contract with the Bengals. That's another one that's kind of like, like I said with Dobbs, feels like we saw this on tape. We think he can be this, so we're going to pay him like that, which more often than not doesn't really work out in the NFL.
I wonder, too, if the Bengals are paying a little for a Super Bowl shine there, too, from coming off a guy who just won a championship.
Possibly, and then also in a similar sense, paying to try to fill a Trey Hendrickson hole, which I don't think Mafe does.
I went with Charlie Kolar from the Chargers, 3 years, $24 million for a block first tight end. Now, look, as Jackson Hawes has proved in Buffalo, that is a valuable thing to have, but 3 years and $24 million, and I know those are,
Jackson Hawes catches touchdowns though too.
I guess well, Charlie Kolar has 4 in his career, so right now he's winning that battle with Jackson Hawes. I understand that there's probably some funny money in there, and it's not exactly the contract. The Jackson Hawes 5th round pick looks ridiculously good now compared to that. The league is moving, by the way, towards valuing the blocking tight end, more multi-tight end formation, so I get it. But to me, that was a big overpay. The other one I had, real quick, J.K. Dobbins, 2 years, $16 million from the Broncos. You just drafted R.J. Harvey. Also, he's on my fantasy team, my dynasty team. So that's another reason I'm mad. But you can't count on Dobbins to play 16 games. Why are you paying him even $8 million a year? So I didn't like either one of those deals. Okay, next category here is the team, the contender, who we think has done the best overall job so far through free agency. I'm going to go first here because I teased it already. For me, it's the Steelers. When you talk about Jamel Dean at one corner to pair with Joey Porter, they might have the best corner combo next to Houston and New England, in the league right now. Certainly in that category. Rico Dowdle to me is a better running back than Kenneth Gainwell. I know Steelers fans love Gainwell. I understand the appeal.
He's done some good stuff there.
I get
He's
it. I get
some
it.
good stuff.
But I like Dowdle better. The other thing too is clearly Pittsburgh is admitting Caleb Johnson was a mistake. You needed an every down back. Dowdle can be that. I don't know if he will. And then you throw on the Pittman deal where they got, that trade for pennies. Sebastian Joseph Day and Jaquan Brisker are 2 starters in the secondary. I really think top to bottom, they have done a very nice job. I'd like this a whole lot more if it wasn't the Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers show that would have been good 10 years ago, maybe. But overall, to me, this was the best work in the league, in the conference among contenders.
I agree with that. They were definitely one of the top teams I had. I kind of struggled with this one too because there were so many teams I was like, oh, I really like these moves, but then you're like, oh, but they lost all these guys or this or that. So this one is kind of, feel free to argue. I don't hate Denver's offseason. They haven't really brought in a ton of signed a ton of external free agents, but they've kept a lot of their team from last year. And then on top of that, you're bringing in Jalen Waddle. You still have obviously sent away a lot of picks with draft picks with Waddle, but you still do have some draft picks at your disposal, and there's still plenty of offseason left, so they could still make some moves to add some guys. But I mean, for a team that was in the AFC Championship last year, they kept a lot of their guys, and they've added a couple. Jalen Waddle, really, but they've added a couple guys. And then I know it says contenders, but got to shout out the Las Vegas Raiders because they by far had the best.
Yes. I looked at Denver a little bit. Losing John Franklin Myers and Dre Greenlaw and PJ Locke.
Dre Greenlaw was one that I was
it does take a bite out of that defense, which will still be pretty good. But to put it in the best work category, I had a tough time getting there, even though you're right. They did a nice job keeping a bunch of their own players. And Jalen Waddle will be a big
It's going to be big, yeah.
Rach?
I also had the Steelers. I don't know if we were counting them as contenders, but
no, we were.
Exactly the same reasons you have. I mean, I think they addressed their offensive needs with Pittman, with Dowdle. I mean, who knows? Aaron Rodgers, I guess, is up in the air. I mean, we're assuming he's going to be there.
It'll probably. They're playing it like Aaron Rodgers is going to be there. Because if it's not him, they're going to try and trade for Jacoby Brissett right now.
Are they playing it like that because they think it is, or because they hope it is, though?
And it has to be that. All
has
three.
To be, yeah.
All three. I'm sorry, Rich. Go ahead.
No, it's everything you said basically is where I'm at too. I mean, I just think having those two guys helps when you have Aaron Rodgers, who's as old as Aaron Rodgers is, and we know he played well last year, but you got to have some guys that you can fall back on a little bit if whatever Aaron Rodgers is doing this season, if they even do have him. So I went with the Steelers. I also, honorable mention for me was Kansas City, just because of the Kenneth Walker situation. Mm-hmm. And I really like Justin Fields as the backup quarterback there. I don't know. We don't know what Mahomes is going to look like for the first game. He says he wants to play. Who knows if it's going to happen. But I think I kind of like that move. It was not too expensive of a move for the Chiefs, so I just kind of like that adding on to it. But I think that would be my honorable mention as well.
I was with you on the Chiefs. You throw in a Aloy Killman. Mm-hmm. They got a truckload of draft picks from the Rams and the McDuffie trade. They've had a good offseason for sure. All right, next category is worst work. And I want to kind of go through this quick because the offseason is like 2 weeks old. So whatever these teams haven't done yet, maybe their vision is in the draft. But regardless, who has impressed you the least so far? Caleb, you can go first.
The Jacksonville Jaguars. They've gotten rid of a lot of really good guys. Devin Lloyd, linebacker, cornerback Greg Newsome, Travis Achan is how he wants to, is how he says it's pronounced. So Travis Achan, running back. They've lost a lot of good guys, and they just haven't really been able to bring in anybody that I'm like super like, oh, nice about. So for that, I'm gonna go Jaguars.
I was with you on the Jags. Same reasons. Chris Rodriguez as your only addition for a team that they played the Bills close, but this is not to me a team that's right on the edge of being a championship favorite. I think you need to do more.
Yeah, they can't
work.
afford to lose what they lost.
Exactly, and still you can't even stand pat and feel like you're good enough. You're close, but I think I wanted to see more out of the Jags. Rach?
I was also with the Jags, same reasons, and then also. Cincinnati was another one. I just haven't been super impressed with what they did, but same thing with the Jags. They've lost a lot of guys and they haven't done anything that stuck out to me either. So,
all right. So now that we've kind of gone through some of the homework of what everybody else who the Bills are going to compete with this offseason, where do we think the Bills stand now? Because when we follow the Bills, we're looking at it from the small lens of, okay, the Bills lost this and gained this, ergo they are better or worse than what they were before. But that don't matter because you got to be not better or worse than Buffalo 2025. You got to be better than everybody else in 2026. So, Rach, I'll go with your first. After seeing what everybody else has done and kind of going through it, what's your take now on how the Bills offseason has gone?
I feel like they're kind of along with everyone else. I know that kind of seems like maybe a cop-out answer, but I know a lot of people were saying the Bills didn't do much in free agency, but it also feels like a lot of other teams didn't do much in free agency either. At least that stood out to me. I mean, I don't think this like class of free agents is particularly better or worse than maybe others. I think it's similar to other teams. Like Caleb said before, you're kind of putting these value on these guys that you hope that that's what they're going to be. And I feel like that's a lot of what the Bills have brought in this offseason. There's a few guys I'm excited for. I mean, Gardner Johnson, one of them. I think Chubb, we can kind of argue back and forth. But otherwise, I think maybe middle of the road. I don't know if that's an acceptable answer, but it's kind of like where I feel like they are right now in comparison to at least the rest of the AFC contenders.
I agree with Rachel. There isn't, although the Bills haven't blown me away this offseason, I don't think any of the other, at least teams near the top of the AFC have either. I mean, maybe the Ravens is the only team that you can say, because I mean, obviously if Trey Hendrickson is something, if he really is worth that $112 million contract, then that's going to be really, really good for them. They already have a good offense. They already have some good pieces on defense. That's going to help them at least get closer to getting over that hump. But outside of them, like there aren't really any teams that have blown me away. So while the Bills haven't either, I think they're just kind of staying right there in that area.
I think the way I put it here is that the Bills did their job of kind of staying where they were. They stayed as a contending team by adding the players they added. Mm-hmm. They hung in. They're still right there with everybody else. And free agency in general has become something that if you're not going to rebuild a team unless you're the Raiders and can spend all the money in the world. Yeah. So you're going to have to kind of pick and choose where you want to address needs. And most teams have done that. I think the Bills have done a pretty good job. When I look around the rest of the conference, though, and kind of see what all these other teams have done, two things stand out. Number one, I think the Patriots did get better. I'm with you guys. I'm not a huge Romeo Doubs fan, but Elijah Vera Tucker, if he's healthy, can be a big shot in the arm to that offensive line. Draymond Jones, I think, was a nice addition on defense. They did lose K'Lavon Chasen and a couple other defensive starters. So there's a little bit of churn there on the defensive side of the ball. But I think the Patriots overall are a little bit better. And, coming off what they did last year, you would think that Drake May is going to get better. Mike Vrabel with another year on the team is going to get better. So the Patriots, to me, remain a threat. The other thing that I land on is that you better get Kansas City right now, because if Kenneth Walker and Gilman, they signed Tonga too, I think, from the Patriots, even Amari DiMercato, to be honest, as a second back, they haven't had anybody at running back for years. And now you got two guys who can go the distance anytime, plus, again, multiple draft picks. It feels like to me that if they're a sleeping giant, this is like a snooze. You know, this is like a 5-minute cat nap what they're taking right here. You better figure that out right this second.
I agree with that. I think it's going to largely depend on what Patrick Mahomes does and what his injury looks like. But even if he's out for, say, the first like half of the season, not only the Bills, I mean, the entire AFC and NFL better put them away in the first half of the season, because if they're even 3-5 coming out of those first 8 weeks, Mahomes could definitely do some real damage.
I like what Denver did too, in terms of kind of standing pat. Of all the teams that kind of stood pat in the AFC, which, like we said, I think most of them did, I do like the Broncos kind of hanging on and figuring things out. Houston, I talked about how much I liked. The Bengals were disappointing for a team that needs a lot of defensive help and is losing Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
So, you know, those are kind of the final thoughts here. Is there a team, let me put it this way. If I forced you to lay some money on someone to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC right now, who do we feel okay about throwing some cash on right now? Because we talked about the Chiefs, but they might be a year away. The Patriots just went through one of the all-time gifted runs to a Super Bowl. I explained why I don't like Baltimore too much. Maybe Denver. I mean, is Denver the best team in the AFC right this second?
I mean, they might be, especially when you think about, like, I know that you're not a Bo Nix fan, but I still don't
He's
think
growing
I
on
think
me.
you preface that.
I still don't think that he's that bad. And I think, like you said with Drake May's probably going to get better this offseason. I think Bo Nix can only continue to get better, so that might help them. I honestly think I like the Ravens, though. Like, I know that they've been one of those teams that you're like, you can't trust them in the playoffs, or you can't even trust them to get to the playoffs last season. But I do think that the Ravens, if healthy, have put together a pretty good roster.
I think I'm kind of leaning toward the Patriots, maybe. I don't know. I think we talked about
it's a fair team to put money on right now.
I think there's a lot of fair teams.
I mean, they were just there last year.
I mean, this is probably going to be another repeat of just a weird AFC team.
I agree.
In the direction that it feels like things are happening, or not AFC season, I mean, in the way that things are happening. But I'd probably say the Patriots. I mean, the Bills, I don't feel too horrible about the Bills either, but I mean, like we said, we kind of, and Caleb feels kind of bad about it.
I wouldn't put money on the Bills. I wouldn't put my money
on
anywhere
the
near the Bills.
I don't know if
now.
I'd put money. I guess if I had to put money, I'd put money on the Patriots. But I don't know. I don't feel strongly enough about any of what has transpired in the last few weeks to help a team get to the Super Bowl, I guess.
The Bills and Ravens are interesting experiments this year, because they're both really good teams, consistent competitors who just fired their head coach as if they were a 6-11 team last year.
Yeah.
Usually that doesn't work year one. You know, the last 25 years or so, there have been 2 coaches who have gone to a Super Bowl in their first year as a head coach, 10 who've done it year 2. So look out for Buffalo and Baltimore in 2027. But this year, that's not a team I'm going to put money on.
I think I know the answer to this question, but just throw it out there because it's funny. What do you think is more likely then? Either Baltimore or Buffalo makes the Super Bowl, one of them, or they both miss the playoffs?
More likely?
More likely.
That's a great question. I'd have to look at Baltimore's schedule. Buffalo's schedule is tough enough this year.
I would say they both miss.
Yeah, I think
More
with
likely.
Rachel, yeah.
What if it was just make the AFC Championship?
Like not the Super Bowl?
Not the Super Bowl. You just have to make. If you make it, if Baltimore or Buffalo go and like the Patriots beat them, it's still.
I would still
You'd
go more likely to miss the playoffs,
Miss
even
the
though
playoffs.
I'm saying it's like 15% chance they miss the playoffs and 10% chance they miss the championship, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because they still have Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. So those are.
I think that's an interesting. I like. Yeah.
You don't.
No, I'm saying that my question is interesting. I think
Well,
you have an answer for it?
I'm patting
What's your
myself
take?
on the
Yeah,
back.
what's your question?
I think it's more likely that one of them makes the AFC Championship. If you push it up to Super Bowl like I started, I think it's more likely they miss the
Okay,
playoffs.
so right now, who's more likely to make the AFC Championship?
Baltimore.
I would say Buffalo.
I think Baltimore. I don't like it.
I trust.
I don't like the answer.
Yeah,
but I do
trust.
think Baltimore.
I trust Buffalo's offensive consistency more than the Ravens, who are bringing in a new defensive head coach.
I do too, but I think I trust Baltimore's defense more right now.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I
and
agree with
defense
that.
wins championships.
Well, I
And if you
guess.
have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, you can do anything any given day.
But they didn't last year.
But they could this year.
An excellent debate for sure. That's going to do it for this edition of BKL Nightly. We'll be back again on Monday. For Rachel Liebert and Caleb Carr, I'm Thad Brown. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you again. Have a good weekend.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.